Jesus of Nazareth, every cult and every occultic group in the world says, never claimed that he was God. All the liberal theologians who have ever written say that Jesus never claimed to be God, and they are all liars. That's just as simple. It is just as simple as that. Someone says, couldn't you put it any nicer? No, I can't put it any nicer because the truth. And I'm just sick to death as a scholar and a professor of comparative religions of people telling me, well, you know, Jesus never said he was God. He didn't? John chapter 8, verse 58. Amen, amen, lego humin, prin Abraham genesthai ego emi. I tell you truly, before Abraham ever came to life, I am Jehovah God. He said it himself. The Jews understood him, verse 59. They reached for the stones to kill him. What was he saying? Achya, achya, achya. I am the Eternal who spoke from the burning bush to Moses. You want to know who I am? And for that, they wanted to kill him. The Jews at that day were a lot smarter than the cultists, the occultists, and liberals of today. The Jews at that time at least knew who Jesus said he was. Jesus said he was God in human flesh. That is an utterly stupendous claim. Now, of course, we're surrounded by people today who are skeptics. It's always safe to be a skeptic. You know what a skeptic is? A skeptic is somebody who says, we can never know for sure whether anything is true. Except the skeptic. And he knows at least that's true. You can never argue with a skeptic simply because no matter what you affirm, he can always say, nobody will ever know because everybody's information is just as good as everybody else's. And a skeptic is always brilliant until he has a pain in his stomach and he has to be operated on. And then he does not know as much as the surgeon. When he has to go to court, he does not know as much as his lawyer. Then he is willing to admit there are people that have better information than he does. The world is full of skeptics. A skeptic is a cop-out. That's the person who says, I really don't understand what's going on, and I'm not going to bother to try and find out because I might get convinced. And so the world is filled with skeptics. Then, of course, we have the atheist. I once debated Madeleine Murray O'Hair for 5 hours on NBC. She is one of the foremost atheists in the world. And we got into a lengthy discussion on who Jesus was. And after she got through swearing, because they had to edit about every fifth word that she said, she finally got down to the place where she wanted to say something against him, and she was searching for the words to say it, but she just couldn't come out on the air and really say what was in her mind, because she knew that the audience, no matter how far out they were, they would never sit still for it. And so she kept dodging around the subject, and she said, well, you know, the Bible has mistakes, and the prophets made mistakes, and, you know, everybody knows this, and everybody knows that. And I said, Madeleine, here's the Bible. And I handed it to her. I said, show me a few mistakes for openers. She said, oh, I haven't got time for that. I said, you're a lawyer, aren't you? She said, yes. I said, a good lawyer always is willing to look at the evidence. I said, I assume you're a good lawyer. Look at the evidence. Produce the mistakes. Well, there were nothing she could produce. And I said, well, you're not going to produce any mistakes. I said, let's talk about Jesus. We broke for a commercial, and she just about snarled like an animal. Talk about Jesus. Well, we got back on the air again. I said, well, let's talk about Jesus. Well, she couldn't snarl on the air. So we started talking about Jesus. And all she kept doing was pointing at all the failures of Christianity. She pointed at the Crusades. She pointed at all the people that were persecuted under Torquemada in the Inquisition in Spain. She pointed at the people that have been killed in religious wars through history. I said, Madeleine, do you know how many people have died in religious wars through all history? She said, oh, you can't even count them. I said, yes, you can. I said, our Department of History recently did a survey on this because we knew you were going to be on the air and we wanted to check up on all the facts. She said, well, how many did you come up with? I said, in all the religious wars involving Christianity, in all of them, knowing the population, as we now know it historically, less than 5 million people died in all history. She said, I don't believe it. I said, I don't care whether you believe it or not. Here's the wars, here's the facts, here's the populations. You go look it up. I said, but that's the fact. There are 2 or 3 professors of history willing to stand by it. I said, now, let's just take a human philosophy for openers. I said, in Germany, 2 men named Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels produced a philosophy known as dialectical materialism, which is today known as communism. In the 50-odd years that has been in existence, that philosophy has accounted in real human lives destroyed in more than 100 million. And they did that in 50 years. Another one, a German philosopher named Nietzsche, so influenced Adolf Hitler that he brought about the persecution of the Jews on the grounds that they were an inferior race, and that the Germans were the Aryan supermen of Nietzsche's philosophy. And 6 million Jews were eradicated on the basis of this line of reasoning. 10 million Baptists alone died in Russia under Stalin, just because of that philosophy. Between Nazism and communism, you managed in the last 50-odd years to wipe out 20 times more than Christianity is accused of in the last 1900 years. I said, now let's get fiercely practical, and I want to address this question to atheists. If the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and if atheism is the great beneficent helper of mankind, and our universities and colleges today are loaded with atheism, don't you dare forget it. Our kids today are brainwashed with more atheism than you'll ever dream of. It's there all over the place. I know, I've lectured in university campuses all over this country. They don't call it atheism. They say we're secularists, but a secularist is an atheist because he recognizes no absolute law, no absolute ruler, no God. Let's ask ourselves the question. How many universities have the atheists built in the last 2,000 years? How many hospitals, how many charitable institutions have they erected? In almost 2,000 years since the preaching of the gospel of Jesus Christ, how many schools, colleges, seminaries, old age homes, and charitable works have atheism, agnosticism, and skepticism brought into the world? The answer is nothing. They are parasites on the carcass of Christianity. They live off us. They survive because of us. They give nothing to the world, and they take everything that they can get their hands on. And Madeline Murray just sat there looking at me, and if looks could kill, I was gone. She said, we've done a great deal. I said, where are your colleges? Where are your schools? Where's your universities? What have you done for your fellow man? You're always talking about your fellow man. What have you done for him? I said, do you realize that 78% of the hospitals in the United States and the schools of higher learning were built by the Church of Jesus Christ? Not by you. You were educated in a school founded by Christians, and we gave an atheist an education. Which, of course, obviously confirms the old adage that if you educate a thief, you increase his capacity to steal. I wish that the Church of Jesus Christ would begin to stand up upon her heritage. And let's start asking the practical question, what has atheism, agnosticism, and skepticism done for mankind? The answer is nothing. Philosophy is basically skeptical, atheistic, and agnostic. I know. I was a philosophy major. I took my master's degree in the subject. Philosophy is the thing that everybody is onto today in our schools of higher learning. What have the philosophers been doing for 2,000 years? chasing each other's tails. And in 2,000 years, they haven't accomplished anything either. They are marvelous critics of society, but they create nothing. Now let's get down to the bedrock of what we're talking about. Jesus Christ came into the world and said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. Jesus Christ came into the world and said, if you're a skeptic, if you're an atheist, and you're an agnostic, taste and see that the Lord is good. If you really want to be an empiricist, then put something to the test. Put God to the test.